The moment Valentina Moretti walked into Adrian Russo's office wearing her engagement ring, she knew one of them would break. For 13 years, he'd been her father's right hand, untouchable, unshakable, and utterly forbidden. But tonight, with 6 months until a wedding that would destroy them both, she wasn't leaving without the truth. "Choose me," she whispered, "or lose me forever." His jaw tightened, his hands trembled, and when he finally looked at her, really looked at her, the war between duty and desire shattered across his face like glass. Want to see how far this story reaches? Hit that like button and comment your city below. Now, let's dive in. The Moretti estate had seen many battles, but none of them had ever started in a red silk dress. Valentina stood at the top of the marble staircase, her fingers barely touching the polished railing, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Below her, the grand hall sparkled with chandeliers and champagne glasses, filled with men in tailored suits and women draped in diamonds. Her father's world. A world built on power, loyalty, and secrets that could get you killed. She took a breath and started down. Every step felt like walking into fire. She'd chosen the dress specifically for tonight. Crimson silk that clung to her curves and fell just above her knees, a neckline that suggested rather than revealed, heels that made her legs look endless. She'd spent an hour on her hair, letting dark waves cascade over one shoulder. She'd even stolen her mother's lipstick, the one labeled dangerous. All of it for one man. Adrian Russo stood near the bar, a glass of scotch in his hand, his expression carved from stone. He wore a black suit like armor, his dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut. At 32, he was her father's most trusted enforcer, his right hand, his brother in everything but blood, and the only man Valentina had ever loved. She watched him as she descended, watched the exact moment his eyes found her, watched his entire body go still, the glass frozen halfway to his lips, watched something flicker across his face, something raw and dangerous and quickly buried. Good. She wanted him to see her, not as the little girl who used to follow him around the estate, not as the daughter of the man he served, but as the woman she'd become, a woman who was tired of being invisible. Valentina, her father's voice cut through the crowd. Dante Moretti stood at the center of the room, commanding attention without even trying. Silver threaded through his dark hair, lines etched around his eyes, evidence of a life spent making impossible decisions. He smiled at her, pride warming his features. "Come here, sweetheart." She moved toward him, acutely aware of Adrian's gaze tracking her every step. The crowd parted, conversations quieted. By the time she reached her father's side, the entire room was watching. Dante took her hand, his grip warm and steady. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, Papa." He turned to address the room, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Thank you all for coming tonight. As many of you know, this dinner celebrates more than just another successful quarter. Tonight, we celebrate family, legacy, and the future of everything we've built." Valentina's stomach tightened. "Which is why," Dante continued, "I'm honored to announce the engagement of my daughter Valentina to Marco Bellini." The words hit her like a physical blow. Applause erupted. Champagne glasses rose. Somewhere to her left, a woman squealed with delight. But Valentina couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand there as a man she barely knew stepped forward from the crowd. Marco Bellini was handsome in the way that magazine covers were handsome. Perfectly styled, perfectly polished, perfectly empty. He smiled at her, all white teeth and calculated charm, and took her hand like he'd already won. "Valentina," he said smoothly, "you're even more stunning than your father promised." She barely heard him, because across the room, Adrian Russo looked ready to commit murder. His knuckles were white around his glass. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jump. And his eyes, those dark, burning eyes, locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. This wasn't surprise on his face. It was rage. He'd known. The realization sliced through her, her father had told him, had probably asked for his approval, his strategic assessment, his loyal fucking endorsement. And Adrian had given it. He'd agreed to let her be sold off like a prize mare. The applause faded. Marco was saying something about honor and partnership and the future. Her father beamed. The crowd raised their glasses in toast, and Valentina felt something inside her crack wide open. "Excuse me," she heard herself say. She pulled her hand from Marco's, ignored her father's questioning look, and walked straight toward the exit. Her heels clicked against marble. Her vision blurred. She made it to the hallway before the tears threatened, made it to the library before her legs gave out. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Silence. She pressed her palms against the cool wood of her father's desk, trying to breathe, trying not to scream. The library smelled like leather and old books, and the cigars her father pretended he didn't smoke. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows, casting everything in silver. Valentina. She spun around. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Get out," she said. He stepped inside and closed the door. "Your father will notice you're gone." "I don't care." "You should." He moved closer, each step measured and controlled. "Walking out of your own engagement party isn't exactly—" "My engagement party?" The laugh that escaped her was sharp and broken. "Is that what we're calling it? Not a business transaction? Not my father selling me to the highest bidder?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Adrian?" She turned to face him fully, anger burning through the tears. "Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my entire future was decided without anyone bothering to ask what I wanted." Something flickered in his eyes. "What you want doesn't change what needs to happen." "And what needs to happen? Me marrying a man I don't love? Me spending the rest of my life pretending to be happy while my father expands his empire?" "Yes." The word was flat, final. "If that's what keeps you safe." She stared at him. Safe from what? From everything. He was close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the barely controlled tension in his shoulders. "You think this world is a game, Valentina? You think your father throws parties and makes alliances because he enjoys it? Every decision he makes is calculated. Every move is strategic. And marrying you to Marco Bellini secures the southern territories and prevents a war that would get hundreds of people killed. So I'm just a chess piece. You're the queen." His voice dropped, rough and low. "The most valuable piece on the board. And your father is trying to protect you the only way he knows how. By giving me to someone else? By giving you to someone who can keep you alive." The words hung between them, heavy and terrible. Valentina took a breath, then another. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "And what about you?" Adrian's expression shuddered. "What about me? Where do you fit in this grand strategy? What role does my father's loyal right hand play in all of this?" "I do what I'm told." "Liar!" His eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." She stepped closer, closing the distance until they were inches apart. "You're lying. Because the man I know, the man who taught me to shoot when I was 12, who carried me inside when I fell off my bike, who sat with me in the hospital when Mama died, that man wouldn't just stand there and watch me be handed off like property. That man knows his place." "His place?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you tell yourself? That you're just following orders? That loyalty means sacrificing everything, including—" She stopped. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Including what?" The question hung in the air between them, dangerous and loaded. Valentina looked up at him, really looked at him, at the way his hands were clenched at his sides, at the tension radiating through his frame, at the careful, controlled distance he always maintained, at the way he was looking at her right now, like she was something both precious and forbidden. "Including me," she finished softly. The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. But something in his expression cracked. It was barely visible, a hairline fracture in his perfectly maintained control. But Valentina saw it, saw the war raging behind those dark eyes, saw 13 years of buried feelings fighting to stay buried. "You don't know what you're saying," he said finally. "Don't I?" She reached up, her fingers barely brushing his jaw. "I've known you my whole life, Adrian. I've watched you, learned you, and I know when you're lying to yourself." He caught her wrist, his grip gentle but firm. "Stop." "Why?" "Because you're 19 years old and engaged to someone else, and I'm—" "You're what?" She pulled her hand free, challenging him. "Too old, too loyal, too afraid." His eyes went dark. You think I'm afraid? I think you're terrified. She moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I think you've been terrified for years. Because somewhere along the way, the little girl you used to protect stopped being a little girl, and you didn't know what to do about it. Valentina, tell me I'm wrong. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Look me in the eye and tell me you feel nothing, that you've never thought about me, that watching me wear another man's ring doesn't make you want to burn this entire estate to the ground. Adrian's control finally snapped. He moved so fast she didn't have time to react. One moment he was standing there, rigid and controlled. The next, his hand was in her hair, tilting her head back, his mouth crashing down on hers. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and nothing she was prepared for. It was angry and desperate and 13 years overdue. His lips were hard against hers, demanding, punishing. She kissed him back with equal fury, her hands fisting in his jacket, pulling him closer. He tasted like scotch and danger and everything she'd ever wanted. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. You want the truth? His voice was rough, raw. Fine. I've wanted you since you were 16 years old, and I hated myself for it. I've spent years trying to pretend you were still that little girl, because the alternative, admitting what I actually feel, would destroy everything. Your father trusts me. The family trusts me. And I've built my entire life on that trust. Adrian, I'm not finished. His hand was still in her hair, holding her in place. You think I don't know you're not a child anymore? You think I haven't noticed the way you look at me? The way you find excuses to be near me? I've noticed everything, Valentina. Every dress, every smile, every time you walk into a room and make it impossible for me to think straight. Her breath caught. But it doesn't matter, he continued, his voice dropping, because I can't have you, won't have you. Your father gave you to Marco because it keeps you safe, because it keeps the peace, because in this world, love is a liability that gets people killed. I don't care. You should. He released her, stepping back like she'd burned him. You should care about your future, about your safety, about the hundreds of lives that depend on this alliance holding. What about your life? She demanded. What about what you want? What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. Adrian's expression was torture. Then you're a fool. The words cut deep, but Valentina refused to flinch. Maybe I am, but at least I'm brave enough to admit what I feel. Brave. He laughed, but it was hollow. You call it brave. I call it selfish. Selfish? Anger flooded back, hot and fierce. Selfish is you pretending this is about my safety, when really it's about you being too afraid to fight for what you want. Selfish is hiding behind loyalty and duty, when what you really mean is you'd rather I marry someone else than risk your precious position. His eyes flashed dangerously. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Then tell me, Adrian, if this is really about my safety, about preventing war, about all these noble sacrifices you keep talking about, why do you look like you want to kill Marco Bellini every time he touches me? The muscle in his jaw jumped. That's what I thought. She smoothed down her dress, trying to calm her racing heart. You want me. I want you. But you'd rather we both be miserable than take a risk, than tell my father the truth, than your father would kill me. The admission was quiet. Final. Valentina froze. What? Adrian ran a hand through his hair, the gesture weary. You think Dante doesn't know how I feel about you? He's not blind, Valentina. He's known for years. And he's made it very clear that my continued existence depends on me never acting on those feelings. Ice flooded her veins. He threatened you? He protected his daughter. Adrian's smile was bitter. 2 years ago, when you were 17, I made the mistake of asking him if, when you were older, when you were ready, he would consider. He didn't let me finish. Told me that if I ever touched you, if I ever even suggested the possibility, he'd put a bullet in my head himself. Valentina felt sick. So yes, Adrian continued, I'm afraid of losing the family I've built, afraid of starting a war, afraid of getting myself killed and leaving you without anyone to protect you. But most of all, I'm afraid that if I let myself love you the way I want to, I'll destroy everything good in your life. The vulnerability in his voice broke her heart. She stepped forward, reaching for him, but he moved away. "Don't," he said quietly. "Please don't make this harder than it already is." "Adrian, go back to the party, Valentina. Smile at Marco. Let your father believe you're happy. And in 6 months, you'll marry into one of the most powerful families in the country. You'll be safe, protected, and eventually you'll forget about this moment." "I'll never forget." "Then learn to live with it." He walked to the door, his hand on the handle. "Because I have to." He left without looking back. Valentina stood alone in the library, moonlight streaming through the windows, her lips still burning from his kiss. And for the first time in her life, she understood what her father had built his empire on. Not power, not money, but the things people were willing to sacrifice for the illusion of safety. She looked down at her left hand, at the empty space where Marco's ring would soon sit, and made a decision. If Adrian thought loyalty and duty were stronger than love, he was wrong, and she had 6 months to prove it. The weeks that followed were a carefully orchestrated dance of public performance and private warfare. During the day, Valentina played her part perfectly. She attended dress fittings with Marco's mother, a sharp-eyed woman who spoke in polite threats disguised as wedding advice. She smiled through engagement photo shoots, letting Marco's hand rest possessively on her waist, while photographers called them the perfect couple. She sat through dinners where business was discussed in coded language, and alliances were sealed with handshakes and bloodlines. She was the dutiful daughter, the perfect fiancée, the strategic asset her father needed her to be. But at night, she waged war. Adrian had made his position clear. He wouldn't fight for her, wouldn't risk his life, his position, or his loyalty to her father. He'd spent 13 years building walls between them, and he had no intention of tearing them down. So Valentina decided to tear them down herself. It started small. She'd find excuses to be in the same room as him, would catch his eye across a crowded hall and hold his gaze just long enough to watch him look away, would brush past him in doorways close enough to smell his cologne, far enough to maintain plausible deniability. She was playing with fire, and she knew it, but she'd spent her entire life being careful, being good, being invisible. Not anymore. "You're staring again." Valentina blinked, pulling her attention back to Marco. They were having lunch at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, seated at a private table with a view of the water. He looked polished as always, his suit perfectly tailored, his smile perfectly practiced. "Sorry," she said. "I was just thinking." "About the wedding?" "Something like that." Marco leaned back in his chair, studying her with those calculating eyes. He wasn't stupid, she'd learned. Behind the charm and the pretty face was a sharp mind and a ruthless ambition that rivaled her father's, which made him dangerous in ways she was only beginning to understand. "You know," he said casually, "most brides are more excited about their upcoming nuptials." "Are they? Or at least better at pretending to be." He took a sip of wine. "You're not happy about this arrangement." It wasn't a question. Valentina met his gaze directly. "Does it matter?" "Not particularly." He shrugged. "Our fathers made this deal. We're just the pieces they're moving around the board. But I'd prefer my wife at least pretend to tolerate my company." "I can do that." "Can you?" He leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a woman in love with someone else." Her heart stopped. Marco smiled. "Don't worry, I'm not offended. Love is a complication neither of us can afford. I'm not asking for your heart, Valentina, just your cooperation. And if I can't give you that, then we'll both be miserable." He signaled for the check. "But we'll be miserable together, which is the best either of us can hope for in this life." The words should have been depressing. Instead, they felt like a challenge. Well, she found Adrian in the estate's gym at midnight, working out his demons on a heavy bag. He didn't hear her come in, or maybe he did, and chose to ignore her. Either way, she stood in the doorway and watched him move, all controlled power and barely restrained violence. His shirt was off, his skin gleaming with sweat, his muscles flexing with each devastating punch. "You're going to break your hands," she said finally. He froze mid-swing, didn't turn around. "Go to bed, Valentina." "I'm not tired." "Then go anywhere that isn't here." She walked into the room, letting the door close behind her. "We need to talk." No, we don't. Yes, we do. She moved closer, circling around until she could see his face. His expression was carefully blank, but his eyes betrayed him. They always did. You can't avoid me forever. I can try. For 6 months? For the rest of our lives? She crossed her arms. I'm going to be living in this city, Adrian, married to Marco. You'll see me at family dinners, at business meetings, at every major event, unless you're planning to disappear. His jaw tightened. I'll manage. Will you? She stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who's barely holding it together. Valentina, did you know Marco doesn't love me? The words came out sharper than she intended. He told me today, over lunch, very casual, very matter of fact, said love is a complication we can't afford. Adrian's hands clenched. He's right. Is he? Because you look pretty complicated to me right now. This isn't a game. I never said it was. She was close enough now to see the tension radiating through his frame. I'm trying to understand. You say you can't have me because of my father, because of loyalty, because it would destroy everything. But you kissed me, Adrian. You told me you've wanted me for years. So which is it? Am I just a complication you need to manage? Or am I something worth fighting for? The silence stretched between them, heavy and dangerous. When Adrian finally spoke, his voice was raw. You're everything worth fighting for, which is exactly why I can't. That doesn't make sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. He turned to face her fully, and the anguish in his eyes nearly broke her. You think I want this? You think I want to watch you marry someone else? Stand there while he puts a ring on your finger and makes promises I should be making. Then stop it. I can't. You won't. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Frustration bled into her voice. You're choosing duty over happiness, safety over love. You're choosing to let fear win. I'm choosing to keep you alive. His voice rose, echo bouncing off the gym walls. Do you understand what would happen if your father found out about us? If the Bellinis discovered you'd broken the engagement? Wars have started over less, Valentina. People would die. And you'd be right in the center of it. So protect me. I am protecting you by staying away. You're destroying me, she said quietly. And yourself. Adrian's expression cracked. For a moment, just a moment, she saw past all his carefully constructed walls to the man underneath, the man who was breaking just as badly as she was. Then he rebuilt the walls, brick by brick. I'm sorry, he said, but this is how it has to be. He walked past her, heading for the door. Valentina didn't try to stop him. She'd learned something important tonight. Adrian Russo loved her, truly, desperately loved her. But love wasn't enough to make him fight, which meant she needed to change the battlefield. Batiku. The next 3 months passed in a blur of wedding preparations and strategic torture. Valentina threw herself into the role of perfect bride with an intensity that surprised everyone, including herself. She approved flower arrangements and seating charts. She smiled through dress alterations and menu tastings. She let Marco's family fuss over her like she was a prize they'd won. And through it all, she made sure Adrian saw every moment of it. She'd wear dresses she knew he loved, would laugh at Marco's jokes just loudly enough for Adrian to hear, would let Marco's hand linger on her waist during family dinners, watching Adrian's expression carefully neutral across the table. It was cruel. It was calculated. It was working. Because with every passing week, Adrian's control slipped a little more. She'd catch him staring when he thought she wasn't looking. Would see his hands clench when Marco touched her. Would watch him make excuses to leave rooms she entered, like her mere presence was too much to bear. He was unraveling, and she was just getting started. You're playing a dangerous game. Valentina looked up from her book to find her father standing in the doorway of the library. Dante Moretti looked tired, she realized. The lines around his eyes had deepened, silver spreading through his hair faster than it had just months ago. I don't know what you mean, she said. Yes, you do. He walked into the room, closing the door behind him. You're pushing Adrian, testing his limits, trying to make him break. Her heart stuttered, but she kept her expression calm. Papa, don't lie to me, sweetheart. He sat down across from her, his gaze steady. I know you're not happy about the engagement. I know you have feelings for Adrian. And I know he has feelings for you. The admission hung in the air. If you know, Valentina said carefully, then why did you agree to this? Why force me to marry Marco when you know? Because I love you. The words were simple, devastating. Because I've spent your entire life building something that would keep you safe. Because in this world, power is the only real protection. And allying our family with the Bellinis gives you more power than loving my right hand ever could. What if I don't want power? What if I just want to be happy? Her father's smile was sad. Happiness is a luxury, Valentina, one I can't afford to give you, not when the alternative is you being used as leverage by our enemies, not when your happiness could get you killed. Adrian would never let that happen. No, he wouldn't. Dante leaned forward. Which is why I've spent the last 13 years making sure he understands that his loyalty to this family means staying away from you. Because if he loved you, truly loved you, he'd become your weakness. And weaknesses in this life get exploited. Valentina felt tears prick her eyes. So you threatened him. I protected you both. Her father's voice was gentle. From yourselves, and from a world that would destroy you if given the chance. Adrian understands this. He's always understood this. Which is why he'll never fight for you, no matter how much he wants to. You don't know that. I do. Dante stood, walking to the window. Because I made the same choice 30 years ago. There was a woman, before your mother, who I loved more than life itself. But loving her would have made me vulnerable, would have given my enemies a target. So I let her go. Married your mother instead. Built an empire on that sacrifice. Were you happy? I was alive. So was she. He turned to look at his daughter. And eventually, I learned to love your mother in a different way. A safer way. The same way you'll learn to love Marco. I won't. You will. His voice carried the weight of certainty. Because you're my daughter, and we do what needs to be done. He left her sitting there, the book forgotten in her lap, tears streaming down her face. 2 months before the wedding, everything changed. Marco took her to Paris. Engagement present, he'd said, all charm and expensive hotels and private tours of the Louvre. It should have been romantic, should have been the trip of a lifetime. Instead, it felt like a prison sentence. They were having dinner at a restaurant that required reservations 6 months in advance when Marco finally addressed the elephant in the room. You should tell him goodbye, he said casually, cutting into his steak. Valentina's fork froze halfway to her mouth. What? Adrian. Marco didn't look up. You should tell him goodbye. Properly. Before the wedding. Please don't insult my intelligence. Now he did look at her, his expression unreadable. I've known since the engagement party, the way you looked at each other. The way he looked ready to murder me just for touching your hand. The way you've spent 3 months torturing him with wedding preparations. Her heart pounded. Marco, I'm not angry. He took a sip of wine. Honestly, I find it fascinating. The great Adrian Russo brought to his knees by something as simple as love. It's almost poetic. Why are you telling me this? Because in 2 months, you'll be my wife, and I need to know that you're committed to making this work. He leaned back in his chair. I don't love you, Valentina, but I respect you. You're intelligent, strategic, and far more dangerous than anyone gives you credit for. You'll make an excellent partner in the business side of this marriage, but I need to know that you're done fighting the inevitable. She stared at him. And if I'm not? Then we'll both be miserable, and this alliance will crumble within a year. His expression hardened. But if you can let him go, truly let him go, then maybe we can build something that works. Not love, but partnership, respect, maybe even friendship, eventually. You're giving me permission to say goodbye to the man I love? I'm giving you permission to close that chapter of your life so we can start a new one. He signaled for the check. Take a few days. Go back to the estate. Have your closure. And then come back to me ready to move forward. And if I can't? Marco's smile was cold. Then I'll tell your father everything, and Adrian will be dead before morning. The threat hung in the air between them. That's what I thought, Marco said quietly. Go say goodbye, Valentina, and then let's both try to make the best of this situation. She flew back to the estate the next morning. Adrian was in his office when she arrived, reviewing security reports like the world wasn't ending. He looked up when she walked in, surprise flickering across his face before his expression shuddered. "You're supposed to be in Paris," he said. "I came back." "Why?" Valentina closed the door behind her, locked it, turned to face him with her heart in her throat. "Because I need to know something." She moved toward his desk, each step deliberate. "I need to know if this is real, if what you feel for me is worth fighting for, or if I should just accept what everyone keeps telling me, that love is a luxury I can't afford." Adrian stood slowly. "Valentina, Marco knows." The words came out in a rush. "He's known since the engagement party, and he's giving me 3 days to say goodbye to you before he tells my father everything and gets you killed." The color drained from Adrian's face. "So here's your choice," she continued, her voice shaking. "You can keep hiding behind duty and loyalty and fear. You can let me walk out of here and marry someone else while you spend the rest of your life wondering what if, or what, or you can fight." She was close enough now to see the war raging in his eyes. "You can tell me that I'm worth the risk, that we're worth the risk, that maybe, just maybe, there's a way to make this work that doesn't end with one of us dead and both of us miserable." Silence. Adrian's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. His jaw worked like he was physically holding back words, and his eyes, God, his eyes looked like torture. "I can't," he said finally. The words shattered her. "You can't?" Her voice broke. "Or you won't. It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Tears streamed down her face now, hot and angry. "For 13 years I've watched you, wanted you, loved you, and for 13 years you've pushed me away because it was safer. Because loyalty mattered more than happiness. Because you'd rather sacrifice everything than take a risk. To keep you safe. I don't want to be safe." The words echoed off the walls. "I want to be loved. I want to be chosen. I want to matter more than duty and honor and all the other excuses you keep using to justify breaking both our hearts." Adrian moved around the desk so fast she didn't have time to react. His hands cupped her face, tilting her head up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You matter more than anything," he said fiercely. "More than my life. More than this family. More than every oath I've ever sworn. You matter so much it terrifies me. Because the moment I choose you, the moment I admit that out loud, I put a target on both our backs. Then let's aim back. It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." She reached up, covering his hands with hers. "Choose me, Adrian. Choose us. And whatever comes after, we'll face it together." For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then something in him finally, irrevocably broke. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. Like 13 years of denial had finally reached its limit. Like nothing else in the world mattered except this moment, this woman, this impossible choice he was finally making. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "I choose you," he said hoarsely. "God help us both, but I choose you." Valentina smiled through her tears. "Then let's go tell my father." Adrian's expression shifted. "Now?" "Right now." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Before either of us loses our nerve, before Marco comes back, before the wedding becomes inevitable. We tell Papa the truth, together, and we deal with whatever happens next. He'll kill me. Maybe." She straightened her shoulders. "Or maybe he'll surprise us. Either way, I'm done being afraid." She headed for the door. Adrian caught her wrist. "Valentina, if this goes wrong, if he doesn't accept this, then we run." She turned to look at him. "We disappear, start over somewhere he can't find us, leave this entire world behind." "You'd give up everything?" "For you?" She smiled. Without hesitation. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. He pulled her close, kissing her one more time, softer now, sweeter, full of promise. "Then let's go face your father," he said. Together they walked through the halls of the Moretti estate, their hands linked, their hearts pounding, ready to start a war. The water scalded her hands, but Maya barely noticed. She scrubbed the same plate for the third time, her mind replaying the weight of Dante's hand on her shoulder, the way his voice had dropped to something almost gentle when he told her to rest. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the empty kitchen. It was past midnight and she'd volunteered to stay late, needing the distraction of work to drown out the memory of cold concrete and Victor's cruel laughter. "You're going to scrub a hole through that." Carmen's voice cut through her thoughts. The older waitress leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her expression caught between concern and exasperation. "That's the fourth plate you've washed twice." Maya set the plate down with trembling fingers. "Sorry, I'm just distracted." Carmen moved closer, lowering her voice even though they were alone. "Look, I don't know what happened last night, and maybe I don't want to know. But whatever you're mixed up in with Dante Moretti, you need to be careful." The name sent a shiver down Maya's spine. She'd learned it from the morning news, whispered in tones of fear and fascination. Dante Moretti, the ghost of Chicago's underworld, the man who'd appeared from nowhere 5 years ago and carved out an empire with surgical precision, the man who'd killed 3 people to save her life. "I'm not mixed up in anything," Maya said, but the words felt hollow. "He just helped me." Men like that don't just help. Carmen's dark eyes were serious, weighted with experience Maya couldn't begin to imagine. They invest, and they always collect. Before Maya could respond, the bell above the diner's entrance chimed. Both women turned, and Maya's heart stopped. Dante stood in the doorway, dressed in another perfectly tailored suit, this one charcoal gray that made his green eyes seem to glow in the artificial light. He looked utterly out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and faded linoleum, a predator who'd wandered into a lamb's pen. "We're closed," Carmen said, her voice steady despite the tension that suddenly filled the room. Dante's gaze never left Maya. "I'm not here for coffee." He paused, something almost like courtesy crossing his features. "Though I appreciate the suggestion, I'm here for Maya." Carmen glanced between them, her jaw tight. "Maya, you want me to call someone?" It was a loaded question. They both knew the police wouldn't come, not for Dante Moretti. Not in this neighborhood, where his influence ran deeper than the law. "It's okay," Maya heard herself say. "I'll talk to him." Carmen hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'll be in the back. You holler if you need me." She shot Dante a warning look that would have been laughable if it wasn't so brave, then disappeared through the kitchen door. Silence stretched between them. Dante remained by the entrance, making no move to approach, as if he understood that his presence alone was overwhelming enough. "You didn't rest," he said finally. "I can't afford to miss shifts." Maya wiped her hands on her apron, hating how they shook. "Bills don't pay themselves." "No." His lips curved, not quite a smile. "They require money, which I believe we discussed." Maya's spine stiffened. "I told you, I don't want—" "My charity?" Dante moved then, but not toward her. He slid into one of the corner booths, the motion fluid and controlled. "I'm not offering charity, Maya. I'm offering employment." She blinked. "What?" "Sit." It wasn't quite a request, but it wasn't the command she'd expected either. When she hesitated, he added, "Please." The word seemed to cost him something. Maya found herself moving to the booth, sliding into the seat across from him. Up close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the faint stubble along his jaw that suggested he'd been awake as long as she had. "You need money," Dante said, his tone matter of fact. "I need someone I can trust in a particular position. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement." Maya's laugh came out sharp and brittle. "You don't even know me. How could you possibly trust me?" "I know enough." His eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. "I know you work 3 jobs to support your sister's medical bills. I know you've never been late on a payment, even when it meant going without food. I know you didn't run last night when most people would have. I know you looked at me, at what I did, and you didn't scream." Each fact landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of unease through her. "You investigated me. I protect my investments." There was no apology in his voice. "And whether you accept my offer or not, you became one of those the moment Victor's men put their hands on you." Maya's hands clenched in her lap. "What kind of employment?" Dante leaned back, the leather booth creaking softly. "I own several legitimate businesses. Restaurants, clubs, a gallery. They all require management, staffing, oversight. You'd start as an assistant manager at one of my restaurants. Real work, real pay. $30 an hour to start. The number hit her like a physical blow. $30 an hour was more than she made at all 3 jobs combined. It was enough to cover Lily's treatments, their rent, groceries, enough to maybe finally breathe. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Why would you pay someone with no management experience that much money? Because I can. Dante's expression was unreadable. Because you'll work harder than anyone else I could hire. Because you'll be loyal, not out of fear, but because you understand the value of what I'm offering. He paused. And because Victor won't stop with one attempt. Ice flooded Maya's veins. What? You humiliated him. Dante's voice was clinical, explaining a simple truth. You survived, which makes him look weak. Weak men in this business don't stay alive long unless they prove they're not. He'll come for you again, Maya. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Then you should have let them. She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't voice the thought that had haunted her all day. Maybe it would have been easier. No. The word was absolute, edged with something dark and fierce. That was never an option. Maya looked at him, really looked at him. Beneath the expensive suit and controlled demeanor, she saw something raw, something that recognized the kind of desperation that came from having everything taken away. She didn't know his story, didn't understand the violence that lived in his eyes, but she recognized a fellow survivor. If I work for you, she said slowly, I'm in your world. That's what you're really offering, isn't it? Protection, but at a price. Everything has a price. Dante's honesty was almost refreshing. But I'm not asking for your soul, Maya. Just your time and your discretion. Work for me, do the job well, and you'll be under my protection. Victor won't touch you. No one will. And if I say no, then I'll still protect you. His words surprised her. But it will be complicated. Harder to justify to people who'll question why I'm interested in a waitress from the South Side. Working for me makes it clean, understandable. It gives us both cover. Maya's mind raced. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that accepting would tie her to a man whose hands were stained with blood, whose business was built on fear and violence. But those same instincts had kept her alive this long, and they were telling her something else too. Dante Moretti was offering her a lifeline, and she was drowning. I need to think about it, she said finally. Dante nodded, pulling a card from his jacket pocket and sliding it across the table. You have until Monday. The address is on the back. If you decide to accept, come to my office at 9 a.m. If you don't show, I'll understand, but the protection remains in place. He stood, and Maya found herself standing too, drawn up by some invisible thread of tension between them. Maya. Her name on his lips sent warmth through her chest. What Victor did, what he tried to do, men like him see people as things to be used or broken. I won't lie to you about what I am or what I do, but I will tell you this, you work for me. You're mine to protect. That means something. He left before she could respond, the bell chiming softly in his wake. Maya sank back into the booth, staring at the card in her hands. The address was in the Gold Coast, as far from her world as the moon. Carmen emerged from the kitchen, her expression grim. You're going to say yes, aren't you? Maya looked up at her friend, this woman who'd given her shifts when she was desperate, who'd covered for her when Lily had emergencies, who'd never asked for anything in return. I don't know, Maya whispered. But that was a lie. She'd known her answer the moment Dante had spoken about protection, about being his. Not because she trusted him, she barely knew him, but because for the first time in 5 years, someone was offering her a way out of the endless drowning. The weekend passed in a blur of double shifts and sleepless nights. Maya told herself she was still deciding, still weighing the impossible choice between safety and morality. But Saturday night, when she visited Lily at the hospital and saw her sister's brave smile despite the pain, she knew there was no choice at all. You look tired, Lily said, her thin hand squeezing Maya's. At 17, she should have been worrying about prom and college, not chemotherapy and morphine drips. I'm fine, Maya lied, brushing Lily's hair back from her forehead. How are you feeling? Like death warmed over. Lily's laugh was weak but genuine. But doctor, Morrison says the new treatment is working. My counts are up. Relief and dread warred in Maya's chest. Up meant good. Up meant more time. But up also meant more treatments, more bills, more zeros she couldn't possibly pay. That's wonderful, Lil. She forced brightness into her voice. I knew you'd kick cancer's ass. Language. But Lily was smiling. Maya, I've been thinking. Maybe we should look into that charity program Dr. Morrison mentioned. The one that helps with… No. The word came out sharper than intended. Maya softened her voice. We're fine. I've got it handled. Lily's gray eyes, so like their mother's, searched her face. You're working yourself to death for me. I'm working to keep you alive. Maya squeezed her hand. That's what sisters do. Maya, no arguments. You focus on getting better. Let me worry about everything else. She stayed until visiting hours ended, until a nurse gently reminded her that Lily needed rest. Walking to the bus stop through the late-night streets, Maya felt the weight of every decision she'd ever made pressing down on her shoulders. Their parents were gone, victims of a drunk driver when Maya was 21 and Lily was 12. She'd become guardian, sister, and parent all at once, had worked herself raw to keep them afloat. And she'd failed. The medical bills were drowning them both. Monday morning came too fast. Maya stood outside a gleaming high-rise in the Gold Coast, Dante's card clutched in her sweating palm. The building's glass facade reflected the morning sun, nearly blinding in its brilliance. Everything about it screamed money and power, worlds she'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. The lobby was all marble and chrome, so clean it felt sterile. A security guard looked up as she approached, his expression politely neutral. Can I help you? Maya held up the card, hoping her voice wouldn't shake. I'm here to see Mr. Moretti. The guard's demeanor shifted subtly, became more alert. He picked up a phone, murmured something too low to hear, then nodded. 23rd floor. Mr. Chen will meet you at the elevator. The elevator was glass-walled, offering a view of Chicago spreading out below as she rose. Maya watched the city shrink, felt herself leaving one world and entering another with each passing floor. When the doors opened, a slim Asian man in an immaculate suit was waiting. Ms. Torres. His accent was British, crisp, and precise. I'm James Chen, Mr. Moretti's executive assistant. Please, follow me. The 23rd floor was all dark wood and expensive art, the kind of place where even the air felt rarefied. James led her down a hallway lined with photographs, black and white shots of Chicago throughout history, beautiful and stark. Mr. Moretti is expecting you, James said, stopping before a set of double doors. May I offer you coffee or water? No, thank you. Maya's throat was too tight to swallow anyway. James knocked once, then opened the door. Ms. Torres, sir. Dante's office was enormous, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. He stood before them, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the morning light. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. Maya. He gestured to a chair before his desk. I'm glad you came. She moved into the room on unsteady legs, hyper-aware of James closing the door behind her. Alone with Dante in this space that smelled of expensive leather and power, she felt more exposed than she had in that alley. I need to know what working for you really means, she said, forcing steel into her voice. No games, no careful words, the truth. Dante studied her for a long moment, then moved to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. James, hold all calls. He returned his attention to Maya. Sit, please. She sat, her hands gripping the chair's armrests. Dante settled into his own chair, the desk between them feeling like both barrier and bridge. The restaurant where you'll work is called Nero's. It's in River North, fully legitimate. Food service license, health inspections, tax payments, the whole 9 yards. Your job will be exactly what I described. Assistant manager, handling schedules, inventory, customer service. But, Maya prompted, but it's my restaurant, which means you'll see things. Meetings that happen in the private dining room, people who work for me coming and going. You'll hear names, see faces. He leaned forward. What I need from you is discretion. What you see and hear stays confidential. You don't talk to the police, you don't talk to reporters, you don't talk to anyone outside my organization about my business. And if the police ask me questions, you refer them to my lawyers. He slid another card across the desk. This is Simon Kraus, best criminal defense attorney in Chicago. You call him immediately if law enforcement approaches you. Don't say anything without him present. Maya's stomach churned. This is conspiracy. You're asking me to obstruct justice. I'm asking you to exercise your Fifth Amendment rights. Dante's voice was calm, reasonable. You're under no legal obligation to volunteer information. If compelled to testify, you'll tell the truth. But you also don't have to make their job easy for them. The truth. Maya laughed bitterly. What is the truth, Mr. Moretti? That you killed 3 men in an alley? That you run an empire built on illegal activity? The truth is complicated. He didn't flinch from her accusation. Yes, I killed 3 men. 3 men who were going to rape and murder you. I'd do it again without hesitation. His eyes burned into hers. As for my empire, some of it operates in gray areas. Some of it is darker than that. But I don't deal drugs, I don't traffic people, and I don't hurt innocents. There are lines I don't cross. How noble. The sarcasm felt like armor. A criminal with principles. Everyone has principles, Maya. The question is whether they have the strength to live by them when it costs something. Dante stood, moving to the windows. I was 17 when my father was murdered. Shot in the head while my mother and I watched. The men who did it worked for a rival organization, one that didn't believe in lines or limits. Maya's breath caught. She hadn't expected honesty, hadn't expected the rawness in his voice. I could have run, Dante continued, his back to her. Could have taken my mother and disappeared, built a normal life somewhere far from Chicago. But running doesn't stop men like the ones who killed my father. It just makes you pray. He turned to face her. So I learned to be the predator instead. I built an organization strong enough that no one could touch us. And yes, I've done terrible things to protect it, to protect the people who depend on me. That doesn't make it right. No, he agreed. But it makes it necessary. This world I'm in, Maya, it exists whether I'm part of it or not. At least with me, there are rules. At least people know where the boundaries are. Maya wanted to argue, to reject the logic that made violence sound reasonable. But she thought of Lily, of the bills that would never stop coming, of Victor's hands on her throat. The world wasn't fair or just. It was brutal and random, and sometimes the only choice was between drowning and grabbing the hand of someone who knew how to swim in dark waters. $30 an hour, she said quietly. Benefits? Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Full health insurance, dental, vision. I'll cover your sister's medical bills directly. Consider it a signing bonus. You'll also have access to my security team if you ever feel threatened. The offer was too good, too perfect. It felt like a trap lined with velvet. I want it in writing, Maya said. A contract that spells out exactly what my job is, what you expect from me. Of course. Dante moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. I had this drawn up over the weekend. Take it home, read it carefully. Have a lawyer review it if you want. I'll pay for that too. He handed her the folder, and their fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity up her arm, made her pulse jump in her throat. Dante's eyes darkened like he felt it too. One more thing, Maya said, pulling her hand back. If I do this, if I work for you, I need your word that you won't ask me to do anything illegal. I'll keep your secrets, I'll be discreet, but I won't break the law. You have my word. Dante extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Maya looked at his outstretched hand, at the scarred knuckles and long fingers, the hand that had killed to save her, that was offering her salvation at an unspoken price. She thought of Lily's smile, of the crushing weight of bills she couldn't pay, of the terror of Victor's men and the certainty that they'd come back. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and something in the contact felt irrevocable, like she'd just signed away more than her professional services. Deal, she whispered. Dante smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger and somehow more dangerous all at once. Welcome to Nero's, Ms. Torres. James will handle the paperwork and show you to the restaurant. You start tomorrow. As if summoned, James appeared in the doorway. Ms. Torres, if you'll follow me? Maya stood on shaking legs, clutching the contract folder like a lifeline. At the door she paused, looking back at Dante. He'd returned to the windows, his silhouette dark against the bright city beyond. "Mr. Moretti?" she called. "Thank you for everything." He didn't turn around. "Don't thank me yet, Maya. You don't know what you've just agreed to." His words followed her all the way down to the street, a warning and a promise wrapped into one. But it was too late for second thoughts now. She'd shaken the devil's hand, and there was no taking it back. Nero's was nothing like the diner. Maya stood outside the restaurant the next morning, her reflection staring back at her from the polished glass doors. The building occupied a corner in River North, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place where entrees cost more than she used to make in a day. Her stomach twisted with nerves and something darker, the knowledge that she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. "Ms. Torres?" A woman appeared at the entrance, her dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, her expression professional but warm. "I'm Angela Russo, head manager. Mr. Moretti said to expect you." Maya forced herself to move forward, to step through those doors into her new life. "Please call me Maya." The interior was even more stunning than the facade suggested. Dark wood tables, leather booths, a bar that stretched along one wall with bottles arranged like art. The open kitchen gleamed with stainless steel, and the scent of garlic and fresh bread made her mouth water despite her nerves. "It's beautiful," Maya said, meaning it. Angela's smile widened. "Wait until you taste the food. Our chef, Marco, is a genius. Temperamental as hell, but a genius." She gestured toward the back. "Come on, I'll show you around and introduce you to the team." The tour was overwhelming. Angela walked her through the reservation system, the seating chart, the kitchen workflow. She met Marco, a burly man with flour on his apron and a suspicious glare that softened only slightly when Angela vouched for her. She met the sous chefs, the line cooks, the servers who eyed her with a mix of curiosity and wariness. "Most of the staff have been here a while," Angela explained as they settled into the office, a small room off the main floor. "They're loyal to Mr. Moretti, which means they'll be testing you. Show them you can do the work, and they'll accept you. Show weakness, and they'll eat you alive." "No pressure?" Maya muttered. Angela laughed. "You'll be fine. Mr. Moretti doesn't make bad decisions about people." She pulled out a schedule, her expression turning serious. "Now, your shifts will be Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're closed Sundays and Mondays. You'll handle the lunch and early dinner service, coordinate with the kitchen, manage any customer issues, oversee inventory and ordering." Maya listened, taking notes, trying to absorb information that felt like drinking from a fire hose. Angela was patient, thorough, but there was an undercurrent to everything she said, a careful choice of words that suggested she understood exactly what kind of organization she worked for. "One more thing," Angela said as she finished the orientation, "the private dining room." She pointed to a closed door at the back of the restaurant. "That's off limits unless Mr. Moretti or I specifically tell you otherwise. When it's in use, you don't go near it, you don't listen at the door, you don't ask questions. Understood?" "Understood." Maya's mouth went dry. This was it, the reality of what she'd agreed to. That room was where Dante's other business happened, where men with blood on their hands made deals in the shadows. "Good." Angela stood, offering her hand. "Welcome to Nero's, Maya. I think you're going to do well here." The first week was a blur of controlled chaos. Maya threw herself into the work with desperate focus, learning the rhythms of the restaurant, the personalities of the staff, the thousand small details that kept everything running smoothly. She arrived early and stayed late, determined to prove she deserved the outrageous salary Dante was paying her. The money hit her account on Friday, and Maya stared at the number until her vision blurred. More than she'd made in a month at all 3 previous jobs combined. She paid Lily's hospital bill in full, felt the weight lift from her chest like she could finally breathe after years underwater. "You seem different," Lily said that weekend, her sharp eyes studying Maya's face. "Happier. Did something happen?" Maya smoothed the blanket over her sister's legs, choosing her words carefully. "I got a new job. Better pay, better hours. Things are going to be easier now." "What kind of job?" Lily's voice held suspicion. "Restaurant management." "Not a lie, just not the whole truth." "It's in River North, really nice place. I think you'd love it." Lily's expression softened. "I'm glad, Maya. You deserve something good after everything you've done for me." Guilt twisted in Maya's gut, but she pushed it down. This was for Lily. Everything was for Lily. She didn't see Dante that first week. He didn't come to the restaurant, didn't call, didn't check on her. She told herself she was relieved, that his absence made everything easier. But sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, she found herself remembering the weight of his hand on her shoulder, the darkness in his eyes when he'd promised to protect her. The second week, everything changed. It started Tuesday morning when Maya arrived to find two men in expensive suits sitting at the bar. They weren't customers. The restaurant didn't open for another 2 hours. They watched her with the flat, assessing eyes of predators, and her instincts screamed danger. "Can I help you?" She kept her voice steady, her hand sliding toward her phone. "You must be Maya." The taller one stood, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I'm Vincent. This is Carlo. We work for Mr. Moretti." The tension in her shoulders eased fractionally. "He didn't mention you'd be coming by." "Last-minute thing." Vincent's gaze swept the empty restaurant. "We need to use the private dining room. You'll want to make yourself scarce for the next few hours." It wasn't a suggestion. Maya nodded, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door, but Vincent's voice stopped her. "One more thing. If anyone asks, we were never here. You came in, restaurant was empty, you did inventory in the office. Got it?" Maya's throat tightened. This was what Dante had meant about discretion, about seeing things and staying silent. "Got it." She spent the morning at a coffee shop 3 blocks away, her coffee going cold as she stared at nothing. When she returned at noon, the men were gone. The private dining room showed no sign of occupancy. Angela arrived shortly after, took one look at Maya's face, and poured them both espresso. "First time?" Angela asked quietly. "Is it always like this?" "Not always, but sometimes." Angela sipped her drink. "The trick is not to think about it. Do your job, keep your head down, and remember why you're here." Maya thought of Lily, of the bills that were finally paid, of the security she'd never had before. Right, why I'm here. The lunch rush swept away her unease. She lost herself in the familiar chaos of orders and complaints, the satisfaction of solving problems and keeping everything running smoothly. By the time the dinner service started, she'd almost convinced herself that this was normal, that she could separate the legitimate business from the shadow one. Then Dante walked in. He appeared during the height of dinner service, flanked by 2 men who moved like trained fighters. The entire restaurant seemed to shift, staff straightening, voices dropping to respectful murmurs. Dante's presence commanded the space effortlessly, his dark suit and calculating eyes marking him as something dangerous and magnetic all at once. His gaze found Maya immediately, held her frozen by the host stand. He said something to his companions, then moved toward her with that predatory grace she remembered from the alley. Maya. Her name was a low rumble. A word? She followed him to the private dining room, hyper-aware of eyes tracking their movement. Inside, he closed the door, and suddenly the noise of the restaurant vanished, leaving them in heavy silence. "How are you settling in?" Dante asked, leaning against the table. "Fine. Angela's been helpful. The staff is warming up to me." Maya clasped her hands to keep them from shaking. "Vincent and Carlo came by this morning." "I know." "Of course he did." "They needed to meet with some associates. I apologize for not warning you." "It's fine." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I understood the arrangement." Dante studied her, and she had the unsettling feeling he could see straight through her careful composure to the fear and confusion underneath. But understanding and experiencing are different things. "I can handle it." The words came out sharper than intended. "I'm sure you can." A hint of amusement crossed his features. "Angela tells me you've been doing excellent work. The staff respects you. Customers are happy. I'm impressed." The praise shouldn't have warmed her, but it did. "I'm just doing my job." "You're doing more than that." Dante pushed off from the table, moving closer. "You're building trust, establishing yourself. That matters in this business." Maya's pulse jumped as he stopped just within arm's reach. This close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtly spiced, could see the faint scar along his jawline she'd never noticed before. "I wanted to thank you," Dante continued, "for giving this a chance. I know it wasn't an easy decision." "You didn't leave me much choice." The accusation slipped out before she could stop it. His expression darkened. I gave you every choice, Maya. You could have walked away. And spent the rest of my life looking over my shoulder waiting for Victor to come back? She laughed bitterly. That's not really a choice. No, Dante agreed softly. It's not. Welcome to my world, where all the choices are bad, and you pick the one you can live with. Something in his voice made her look at him differently, see past the power and control to the man beneath. He'd lived with impossible choices too, had made them when he was younger than she was now. Your father, Maya heard herself say. How old were you when they killed him? Dante's jaw tightened. 17, old enough to understand what it meant, young enough to think I could fix it. Could you fix it? I destroyed the organization responsible, systematically, methodically, until nothing remained but ashes and bodies. His eyes were distant, seeing horrors she couldn't imagine. Did that fix it? Did that bring my father back or erase what I saw? Maya didn't answer. The question was rhetorical, weighted with years of violence and regret. I tell you this, Dante said, his focus sharpening on her, because I want you to understand something. The path I chose, the things I've done, they were necessary for survival, but they cost me pieces of myself I'll never get back. You're not on that path, Maya. You're just under my protection while you work an honest job. But I'm complicit now. The truth sat heavy on her tongue. I'm part of your world whether I want to be or not. Yes, he didn't lie to her, didn't soften it. But complicity and participation are different. You're not dirty, Maya. Not yet. And if I have anything to say about it, you never will be. The conviction in his voice stole her breath. He meant it, she realized. He genuinely wanted to keep her separate from the violence, to give her safety without corruption. Why? She whispered. Why does it matter to you what happens to me? Dante reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it sent shivers down her spine. Because when I look at you, he said quietly, I see someone who still believes the world can be good. Someone who works 3 jobs for her sister, who faces down armed men rather than abandon a stranger, who looks at a monster and sees a man. His hand fell away. That's rare, Maya. Worth protecting. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the intensity of his gaze and the confession wrapped in his words. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Boss? Carlo's voice filtered through. Your 9 o'clock is here. The moment shattered. Dante stepped back, his expression shifting to professional neutrality. I'll be right out. He looked at Maya one last time. Get back to work. And Maya? Lock your doors at night, vary your route home. Victor may be licking his wounds, but he's not done with you. Fear spiked through her. You think he'll try again? I think he's predictable, which makes him dangerous. Dante moved to the door. Don't worry, I have people watching you, making sure you're safe, but it never hurts to be careful. He left, taking the warmth and intensity with him. Maya stood alone in the private dining room, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. She should be terrified, should be planning her escape. Instead, all she could think about was the gentleness in Dante's touch and the darkness in his promise to protect her. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Maya threw herself into managing Nero's, finding satisfaction in the work that had nothing to do with her salary. She loved the controlled chaos of service, the artistry of Marco's kitchen, the regulars who started requesting her by name. Angela became more than a colleague. She became something like a friend, though they both understood the boundaries of what could be discussed. Dante appeared occasionally, always for meetings in the private dining room. Sometimes Maya only knew he'd been there by the scent of his cologne lingering in the air, the way the staff moved with extra precision. Other times, he'd seek her out, ask about her day, her sister, her life with an interest that felt genuine. She told herself it was just good management, that he was simply protecting his investment, but the way he looked at her, the careful distance he maintained as if afraid of crossing some invisible line, suggested something more complicated. Lily's health improved. The new treatment protocol was working, her doctors optimistic for the first time in months. Maya celebrated with takeout from Nero's. Marco had insisted on packing her a feast when he learned about her sister, and watched Lily devour pasta carbonara with enthusiasm that made her eyes sting with grateful tears. This is incredible, Lily mumbled around a mouthful of food. Your chef is amazing. He knows it too. Maya smiled, watching her sister eat. Lily had color in her cheeks again, had gained back some of the weight the chemo had stolen. Hope was a dangerous thing, but Maya let herself feel it anyway. Tell me about your boss, Lily said suddenly. You never talk about him. Maya's smile faltered. There's not much to tell. He owns several restaurants, stays pretty hands-off. Angela mentioned him when she called to confirm your insurance benefits. She seemed almost nervous saying his name. Lily's eyes were too perceptive. What's the deal with this guy? He's just intense, successful, powerful. You know the type. Do I? Lily set down her fork. Maya, I'm not stupid. You go from working yourself to death at 3 minimum wage jobs to suddenly managing a high-end restaurant at $30 an hour with full benefits that cover all my treatments? That doesn't happen unless someone very powerful decides to make it happen. Maya's chest tightened. I got lucky. Right place, right time. Or wrong place, wrong time, and someone intervened. Lily leaned forward. That night a few weeks ago, when you came home late and you had that bruise on your shoulder you thought I didn't notice, something happened, didn't it? The lie sat ready on Maya's tongue, but looking at her sister's face, older than 17, aged by pain and fear and too much reality, she couldn't do it. Yes, Maya said quietly. Something happened. Someone helped me. This job is part of that. Are you safe? The question cut straight to the heart of it. Maya thought about Vincent and Carlo, about the meetings in the private dining room, about Victor's men and Dante's promise of protection. Safer than I was before. Lily absorbed this, her expression troubled but accepting. Okay, but Maya? If that changes, if you're ever in danger, you tell me. We figure it out together. Deal. Maya squeezed her sister's hand, swallowing the guilt that came with knowing Lily could never understand the full truth. That night, walking to her car in the hospital parking garage, Maya felt the weight of eyes on her. She'd felt it before. The sense of being watched that Dante had promised came with his protection. Usually it was comforting, knowing someone had her back. Tonight it felt different, heavier. She quickened her pace, keys ready in her hand. The concrete structure was mostly empty at this hour, her footsteps echoing hollowly. Almost to her car. Almost safe. Maya Torres. The voice froze her blood. We need to talk. She spun to find Victor leaning against a concrete pillar, his face still showing the healing bruises from Dante's fists. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, both armed if the bulges under their jackets were any indication. Stay away from me. Maya's voice shook but held. Dante will kill you if you touch me. Victor's laugh was ugly. Dante's not here, sweetheart, and his dogs lost me 3 blocks ago. He pushed off the pillar, moving closer. I've been patient, waiting for the right moment. Moretti can't watch you every second. Terror flooded her system, but Maya forced herself to think. Her phone was in her purse. She could scream, but would anyone hear? Would they come in time? What do you want? Keep him talking. Someone would notice. Someone had to notice. Satisfaction. Victor's smile was cruel. You cost me respect, made me look weak. Dante killed 3 of my men, but you're the one who started it all by not dying like you were supposed to. I'm sorry. The apology tasted like ash. I didn't mean to humiliate me. Didn't mean to run to Dante fucking Moretti for protection. Victor was close enough now that she could smell the alcohol on his breath. Too late for sorry, Maya. Way too late. His hand shot out, grabbed her wrist. Maya screamed, the sound ripping from her throat as she twisted against his grip. His men moved in, cutting off her escape, and panic obliterated rational thought. Then headlights blazed across the garage, tires screeching. A black SUV slammed to a stop 20 feet away, and Dante emerged like a demon summoned from hell itself. His gun was already drawn, aimed at Victor's head with steady hands. Let her go. Dante's voice was death incarnate. Now. Victor's grip tightened, using Maya as a shield. You're outnumbered, Moretti. My men have guns too. And they'll die before they clear their holsters. Dante moved closer, his aim never wavering. Your choice, Victor. Let her go and walk away, or die here in this parking garage like the piece of shit you are. You'll start a war, Victor hissed. My family won't let this stand. Your family disowned you last week. Dante's smile was vicious. They're tired of cleaning up your messes. No one will avenge you, Victor. You're already a dead man. I'm just deciding how painful to make it. The truth of it showed in Victor's eyes, the desperate knowledge that he'd already lost. His grip on Maya loosened fractionally, and she wrenched herself free, stumbling toward Dante. He caught her with his free hand, pulling her behind him without taking his eyes off Victor. Smart choice, Dante said. Now run. If I see you again, if you even think about Maya or anyone under my protection, I won't be this merciful. Victor and his men backed away, weapons still holstered, fear overriding bravado. They disappeared into the shadows of the garage, and only then did Dante lower his gun. He turned to Maya, his free hand cupping her face with devastating gentleness. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak past the terror still choking her. Dante pulled her against his chest, his arms solid and warm around her shoulders, and she let herself break. Sobs tore from her throat, her body shaking with the adrenaline crash. I've got you, Dante murmured against her hair. You're safe now, I've got you. And despite everything, the violence, the danger, the impossible complication of her life, Maya believed him. Dante didn't let go until her breathing steadied. Even then, his hand remained at the small of her back as he guided her to the SUV, his body positioned between her and the shadows where Victor had vanished. The driver, a man Maya recognized as one of Dante's security team, opened the rear door without a word. Get in, Dante said softly. I'm taking you home. Maya wanted to argue, to insist she could drive herself, but her hands were still shaking too badly to hold her keys. She slid into the leather interior and Dante followed, maintaining that careful distance even as his presence filled the space. The driver pulled out smoothly, and silence stretched between them. Maya stared at her hands, at the red mark on her wrist where Victor had grabbed her, and felt the weight of what had almost happened crushing down on her chest. How did you know? Her voice came out rough, scraped raw from screaming. You said his men lost your people. They did. Dante's jaw was tight. But I had a tracker placed on your car 3 weeks ago. When it showed you in the parking garage longer than normal, I got concerned. He turned to look at her, his eyes dark with something that might have been guilt. I should have anticipated this. Should have known Victor would try something when you were visiting your sister. You can't be everywhere. The words felt automatic, detached. You can't predict everything. I can try. His voice was hard, uncompromising. You're under my protection, Maya. That means something to me. She met his gaze, saw the fierce determination there, the self-recrimination that suggested he took her safety as a personal responsibility. You saved me. Again. I put you in danger in the first place. Dante's hands clenched into fists. If I'd killed Victor that night in the alley instead of just beating him, you wouldn't have had to go through this. Maya's breath caught. He meant it. He genuinely regretted showing mercy, saw it as a tactical error that had put her at risk. The coldness of that calculation should have terrified her. Instead, she found herself reaching out, her hand covering his fist. Don't, she said quietly. Don't regret being human. Dante stared at her hand on his, something unreadable crossing his features. Slowly, his fist unclenched, his fingers threading through hers with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was. You see too much good in me, he said, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. It's dangerous, Maya, for both of us. Maybe. She didn't pull away. Or maybe I just see you. The SUV pulled up to her apartment building, the shabby facade a stark reminder of the worlds that separated them. Dante's driver moved to open the door, but Dante stopped him with a raised hand. I'm walking her up, he said, his tone brooking no argument. Maya's apartment was on the 3rd floor, accessed by a narrow stairwell that smelled of cooking oil and old carpet. She was acutely aware of Dante behind her, of how out of place he looked in his $1,000 suit climbing stairs with chipped paint and flickering lights. At her door, she fumbled with her keys, her hands still unsteady. Dante took them gently, unlocked the door, and pushed it open. He did a quick sweep of the small space, living room, kitchenette, 2 bedrooms barely bigger than closets, before turning back to her. Pack a bag, he said. You're not staying here tonight. Maya's exhaustion crystallized into frustration. You can't just order me around. I can when your safety is at stake. Dante's expression was implacable. Victor knows where you live, Maya. He's desperate and humiliated, which makes him unpredictable. You're not safe here. So what, I'm just supposed to uproot my life every time someone threatens me? The words came out sharper than intended, powered by fear and adrenaline. Hide in whatever safe house you arrange until you decide the danger has passed? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. I can't live like that. Maya moved past him into the apartment, needing distance from his overwhelming presence. I won't live like that, constantly running, constantly afraid. Dante followed her, his footsteps quiet on the worn linoleum. Then what do you suggest? Victor almost grabbed you tonight. Next time, I might not get there in time. The truth of it hit her like ice water. She sank onto her threadbare couch, the weight of everything suddenly too much. Dante stood across from her, tension in every line of his body, clearly torn between comfort and his need to keep her safe. What happened to Victor? Maya asked. You said his family disowned him. Is that true? Dante's expression darkened. I made it true. I went to his uncle, the head of their organization, and presented evidence of Victor's indiscretions. Unauthorized hits, skimming profits, the attack on you that violated territorial agreements. He paused. His uncle decided Victor was more liability than asset. He's out. No protection, no resources. So he has nothing left to lose. Maya's stomach turned. That makes him more dangerous, not less. In the short term, yes. Dante moved to the window, checking the street below with practiced efficiency. But a man with no allies and no money doesn't last long in this world. Victor will make a mistake, and when he does, I'll be there. To kill him? Not a question. To end the threat. Dante turned back to her. I won't apologize for protecting what's mine, Maya. The possessiveness in his voice sent heat through her despite everything. I'm not yours. I work for you. Is that what you think this is? He crossed to her in 3 strides, kneeling so they were eye level. You think I track all my employees, show up personally when they're in danger, lose sleep thinking about whether they're safe? Maya's breath caught. Up close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. Then what is this? She whispered. Dante's hand came up to cup her face, his touch reverent despite the violence those same hands had committed. I don't know. I've never felt anything like this before. His thumb traced her cheekbone. From the moment I saw you in that alley, something in me recognized something in you, like calls to like, maybe. Survivors who refuse to stay down. I'm nothing like you. But her voice shook, betraying the lie. No, he agreed softly. You're better. You survived without becoming what I am. That takes a strength I never had. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang, shattering the moment. Lily's name flashed on the screen and guilt surged through her. She'd been so consumed with her own crisis that she'd forgotten to text that she'd gotten home safely. Hey, Lil, Maya answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Are you okay? Lily's voice was tight with worry. You left your scarf. I tried to catch you in the parking garage, but I saw... Maya, I saw those men grab you. I saw someone with a gun. Maya's world tilted. You saw? I called 911, but then you were gone, and I didn't know if you were hurt, or did you... Lily's voice cracked. Maya, what the hell is going on? Dante's expression shifted to professional focus. He held out his hand for the phone, and Maya, too shocked to argue, gave it to him. Lily, he said calmly, my name is Dante Moretti. I'm Maya's employer. Your sister is safe. She's with me. Maya couldn't hear Lily's response, but whatever she said made Dante's jaw tighten. I understand your concern, he continued, but the situation is under control. The men who threatened Maya have been dealt with. A pause. No, the police aren't necessary. In fact, I'd appreciate if you didn't file a report. It would only complicate matters. He listened for another moment, then his expression softened fractionally. You have my word, Lily. I will keep your sister safe. I'm bringing her to stay at a secure location tonight. She'll call you in the morning. Another pause. Yes, you have my word. He handed the phone back to Maya, who took it with numb fingers. Maya? Lily's voice was small, younger than her years. Tell me you trust this guy. Maya looked at Dante, at the man who'd killed for her twice now, who'd offered her salvation wrapped in shadows, whose touch made her feel safe and terrified in equal measure. I trust him, she said, and realized she meant it. After she hung up, Dante stood, offering his hand to pull her up. Pack that bag. We're leaving before the police show up asking questions neither of us wants to answer. This time, Maya didn't argue. She threw clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed her toiletries, moved on autopilot while her mind raced. Lily had seen. Her 17-year-old sister had witnessed men with guns, had seen Maya in danger, had called 911. The secret she'd been trying to protect was blown wide open. She can't know everything, Maya said as they left the apartment. Lily can't know what you really do, what your world is really like. She won't hear it from me. Dante's hand was steady at her back as they descended the stairs. As far as your sister knows, I'm a restaurateur who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Nothing more. The SUV was waiting, and Dante's driver opened the door with the same impassive efficiency. As they pulled away from her building, Maya watched it disappear in the side mirror and felt like she was leaving behind the last piece of her normal life. Where are we going? She asked. My home. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. It's the most secure location I have. No one gets in without my permission. The drive took them north along the lake, into neighborhoods where mansions hid behind gates and manicured hedges. They turned onto a private drive, stopped at a security checkpoint where guards waved them through with crisp efficiency, and finally pulled up to a modern masterpiece of glass and steel perched on the waterfront. Maya stared up at the building, at the floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the moonlight off Lake Michigan, and felt profoundly out of her depth. This is your home? One of them. Dante helped her out of the SUV. I have a penthouse downtown and a house in the suburbs, but this is where I feel safest. The interior was as stunning as the exterior promised. Clean lines, expensive art, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But there were personal touches too. Books on the shelves, a chess set on a side table, photographs that suggested a life beyond violence and power. The guest suite is upstairs, Dante said, leading her through the space. You'll have privacy, your own bathroom. James stocked it with basics, but if you need anything, just ask. The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, dressed in white linens that probably cost more than her monthly rent. French doors opened onto a balcony with a view of the lake that took her breath away. This is too much, Maya said, setting her duffel bag on the floor. It's adequate. Dante leaned against the doorframe, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. Security monitors all access points, so you're safe here. Maya turned to face him, suddenly aware of how alone they were, how the rest of the world felt impossibly far away. Thank you. For tonight, for everything. You keep thanking me for cleaning up messes I caused. Dante pushed off from the doorframe but didn't approach. Victor came after you because of me, Maya, because I claimed you as mine when I killed his men. You claimed me? The words should have angered her, but instead they sent heat pooling low in her belly. Yes. His eyes darkened, tracking her every movement. The moment I stepped into that alley, the moment I decided you were worth protecting, I marked you as under my authority. In our world, that's as binding as a blood oath. I never agreed to that. No, he admitted. You didn't, but I'd make the same choice again. They stood in the doorway, the tension between them crackling like electricity. Maya knew she should step back, establish boundaries, remind herself that this man was dangerous in more ways than just physical. But her body moved forward instead, drawn by something she didn't want to name. Dante, she whispered, what are we doing? His hands clenched at his sides, the only sign of how much control he was exerting. I'm trying very hard to give you space, to not cross lines that shouldn't be crossed between an employer and employee. What if I don't want space? The confession escaped before she could stop it. Dante's control visibly frayed. Maya, you've been through trauma tonight. You're vulnerable, possibly in shock. I won't take advantage of that. Is that what you think this is? She closed the distance between them. her hand finding his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palm. I'm not some damsel you need to protect from yourself, Dante. I'm a grown woman making a choice you might regret in the morning. But his hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his heart. I'm not a good man, Maya. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. Then don't tell me the details. She looked up at him, saw the war raging behind his eyes. Just be here, right now, with me. Dante's other hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her lips with devastating gentleness. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back, you understand that? Maya understood more than he knew. She understood that she'd been falling since that first night in the alley, since he'd looked at her with eyes that saw through all her defenses. She understood that this was reckless and dangerous, and possibly the worst decision she'd ever make. She understood, and she didn't care. I understand, she said, and kissed him. Dante made a sound low in his throat, somewhere between surrender and triumph, and kissed her back. His lips were firm but gentle, exploring rather than demanding, and Maya melted into him. His arms came around her, pulling her flush against his body, and she felt the leashed power in him, the careful control he maintained even now. She wanted to shatter that control, wanted to see the man beneath the careful facade, wanted to know what it felt like to be wanted by someone who'd killed to keep her safe. Her hands slid up to tangle in his hair, and she deepened the kiss, pouring every complicated emotion into the contact. Dante groaned, his control slipping. He walked her backward until her legs hit the bed, then followed her down onto the mattress, his weight a delicious pressure. His mouth moved to her neck, teeth grazing her pulse point, and Maya arched into him. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her skin. Tell me this is a mistake. Don't stop. Her hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling them open with shaking fingers. Don't you dare stop! His laugh was dark and rough. Dangerous words, Maya. I'm done being safe. She pushed his shirt off his shoulders, her hands exploring the planes of his chest, the scars that marked his skin with a history of violence. I want this. I want you. Dante captured her mouth again, and this time there was no gentleness, no careful control. There was only heat and need, and the desperate knowledge that they were both falling into something neither of them could stop. Later, much later, Maya lay in the darkness with Dante's arm around her waist, his breathing deep and even against her back. The rational part of her brain screamed that she'd made a catastrophic mistake, that sleeping with her boss, who was also a crime lord, was the definition of poor judgment. But the rest of her felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Safe. I can hear you thinking, Dante murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Can't turn it off. Maya shifted to face him, barely able to make out his features in the dim light from the window. This changes everything. Yes. His hand found hers beneath the covers, their fingers intertwining. Are you regretting it? Maya considered lying, considered taking the easy path of pretending this was just stress relief, a one-time lapse in judgment. But Dante deserved honesty, even if it terrified her. No, she said softly. I'm just scared of what it means. So am I. The admission surprised her. I've built my entire life on control, Maya, on making calculated decisions and never letting emotions compromise my judgment. And then you walked into my world and destroyed every rule I'd made for myself. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. He pulled her closer, his lips brushing her forehead. But here we are anyway. They lay in silence, the weight of their choices settling around them like snow. Maya thought about Lily, about the restaurant, about Victor still out there somewhere planning his revenge. She thought about the impossibility of loving a man whose hands were stained with blood, who'd built an empire on fear and violence. But when Dante's arms tightened around her, when his heartbeat steady against her cheek reminded her that he was just a man beneath the reputation, she let herself believe that maybe impossible didn't mean the same thing anymore. Morning came too soon. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through the French doors and the scent of coffee drifting up from downstairs. Dante was gone, the sheets beside her cool, and for a moment she wondered if she'd dreamed the entire night. Then she saw his shirt draped over a chair, felt the pleasant ache in muscles she'd forgotten she had, and knew it had been very, very real. She found him in the kitchen, dressed in slacks and a dress shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked up as she entered, and something in his expression softened. "Coffee's fresh," he said, pouring her a cup. "I had James pick up some things from your apartment. They're in the guest room." Maya accepted the coffee, hyper-aware of wearing one of his t-shirts and nothing else. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted you to be comfortable." Dante leaned against the counter, studying her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "How are you feeling?" "Like my life is completely unrecognizable from what it was a month ago." She sipped the coffee, needing the caffeine to face whatever came next. "We should probably talk about last night." "Should we?" A hint of amusement crossed his features. "I was rather hoping we could just enjoy the morning." "Dante." She set the cup down. "I work for you. We crossed a line that could make everything incredibly complicated." "It was already complicated, Maya. We just stopped pretending otherwise." He moved closer, his hand finding the curve of her waist. "But if you're worried about your job, don't be. You're exceptional at what you do, regardless of what's happening between us. And if it doesn't work out, if this thing between us implodes, then we deal with it like adults." His thumb traced circles on her hip. "I won't fire you out of spite, and I trust you won't quit just to hurt me. We're both too practical for that." Maya wanted to argue, to point out all the ways this could go wrong, but his touch was distracting and the coffee was perfect, and standing in his kitchen in the morning light felt more right than anything had in years. "Okay," she said finally, "but we need rules, boundaries." "Name them." "At work, we're professional. No special treatment, no obvious favoritism. The staff can't know about this." She paused. "And Lily definitely can't know." Dante nodded. "Agreed. What else?" "Honesty." Maya met his eyes. "I know I can't know everything about your business, but I need you to be honest with me about the things that affect me directly. No more surprises like Victor." Something dark crossed his expression. "Victor won't be a problem much longer. I have people tracking him. When they find him..." He left the sentence unfinished, but Maya understood the implication. "Don't tell me when it happens," she said quietly. "I don't want to know the details." Dante studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I can live with that. Anything else?" Maya thought about asking him to leave his world, to build something legitimate and safe. But she knew better. Men like Dante didn't just walk away. Their pasts followed them, and the empires they built demanded constant vigilance. "Just promise me," she said instead, "that you'll keep me separate from the worst of it. I meant what I said about not breaking the law, about not becoming someone I can't recognize in the mirror." "You have my word." Dante pulled her close, his arms solid and safe around her. "I'll protect you from my world, Maya, even if that means protecting you from me." She looked up at him, at the man who'd offered her everything and asked for nothing she wasn't willing to give. "I don't need protection from you, Dante. I just need you to be honest about what I'm signing up for." His kiss was answer enough, promise and possession wrapped into one. And as Maya surrendered to it, as she let herself fall deeper into the impossible complication of loving a dangerous man, she knew there was no going back to the person she'd been before. That woman had died in an alley the night Dante Moretti had stepped from the shadows and changed her life forever. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange duality. At Nero's, Maya was the consummate professional, managing staff, handling customers, overseeing operations with an efficiency that earned respect even from the most skeptical employees. She and Dante maintained careful distance during his visits, their interactions polite and businesslike, giving no hint of the night she spent in his bed, wrapped in sheets that cost more than her old monthly salary. But the separation between their worlds grew harder to maintain. Maya found herself learning the rhythms of Dante's life, the late-night phone calls that pulled him from sleep, the tension that settled in his shoulders when deals went sideways, the careful calculations he made about loyalty and betrayal. She learned to read the danger in his silences, to understand when he needed space and when he needed her to anchor him to something human. "You're different," Angela observed one afternoon as they reviewed inventory. Her dark eyes were knowing, missing nothing. "Happier, maybe. Or at least less haunted." Maya's hand stilled on the spreadsheet. "I don't know what you mean." "Please." Angela's smile was wry. "I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 5 years. I know when he's interested in someone, and I know when that interest is returned. She paused. I'm not judging Maya, but I am warning you. This life, his world, it consumes everything it touches. Make sure you know what you're willing to sacrifice before you're in too deep. What if I'm already in too deep? The confession slipped out before Maya could stop it. Angela's expression softened with something like sympathy. Then hold on tight and pray you both survive it. That night, Maya called Lily from Dante's penthouse downtown. Her sister's voice was stronger, brighter, the new treatment working miracles that felt almost too good to be true. Dr. Morrison says if the next scans are clear, I might be able to come home in a few weeks, Lily said, excitement threading through her words. Home, Maya, real home, not a hospital room. Joy and terror warred in Maya's chest. Home meant her apartment, the neighborhood where Victor had found her, the life she'd been slowly leaving behind. That's incredible, Lil. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Lily's voice went quiet. I know you've been sacrificing everything for me, working yourself to death. But Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Maya's stomach tightened. What is it? That man, Dante Moretti. Are you in trouble with him? Because if you are, if you're doing something dangerous to pay for my treatment, I need to know. The question cut straight to the bone. Maya looked around the penthouse, at the luxury that had become familiar, at Dante's jacket draped over a chair, evidence of the life she'd chosen. I'm not in trouble, she said carefully. Dante has been good to me, Lily. Better than I deserve. That's not an answer. Lily's perception was razor sharp. Maya, I'm not stupid. I've been researching him. Dante Moretti owns half of Chicago's high-end restaurants, has connections to some very questionable people, and there are rumors. Stop. Maya's voice was sharper than intended. Whatever you read, whatever you think you know, just stop. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. I love you, Lily finally whispered, and I trust you to make the right choices. But please, please be careful. I can't lose you too. You won't lose me. Maya blinked back tears. I promise, Lil. Everything is going to be okay. But as she hung up, she wondered if that was a promise she could actually keep. Dante came home late that night, tension radiating from every line of his body. He barely acknowledged Maya as he poured himself scotch. His knuckles bruised in a way that suggested violence had been part of his evening. What happened? Maya asked, setting aside the book she'd been pretending to read. Victor. Dante downed the scotch in one swallow. We found him. He'd been hiding in a warehouse on the south side, planning something. My people intercepted him before he could act. Maya's blood ran cold. Is he dead? No. Dante poured another drink. Though he probably wishes he was. I had him taken somewhere secure. He's talking, telling us everything about his remaining contacts, his plans. He turned to face her, his eyes hard. He was coming for you again, Maya. Had detailed surveillance, knew your routines, Lily's hospital schedule. He was going to grab your sister, use her as leverage. The room tilted. Lily? She's safe. I've had security on her since the parking garage incident, but they're doubling now. Dante moved to her, his hands gentle despite the violence they'd recently committed. He can't hurt either of you anymore. I'm making sure of that. Maya should have felt relief, should have been grateful. Instead, all she felt was the crushing weight of what her choices had brought into Lily's orbit. This is my fault. I brought this into our lives. No, Dante's voice was absolute. Victor brought this on himself when he decided to prey on innocent people. You're not responsible for his evil, Maya. You're just caught in the crossfire. But Lily is alive and safe because of the protection I provided. He pulled her close, his arms solid around her. Stop taking on guilt that isn't yours to carry. Maya buried her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of his cologne mixed with something darker, smoke and metal and fear. What are you going to do with him? What I should have done the first night. Dante's voice was cold, matter of fact. He's a threat to you, to Lily, to the fragile peace I've maintained. Threats get eliminated. You're going to kill him. Not a question. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. Maya pulled back to look at him, at the man she'd somehow fallen in love with despite the blood on his hands. And you're telling me this because you asked for honesty about things that affect you directly. Dante's eyes searched hers. And because I need you to understand what I am, Maya. I'm not a hero. I'm not even particularly good. I'm a man who does terrible things to protect what's his, and I won't apologize for that. I'm not asking you to apologize. Maya's hands found his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. I'm just asking you to let me decide whether I can live with it. Can you? The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. Can you love a man who kills without remorse? Who'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe, no matter how dark? Maya thought about the scared waitress she'd been a month ago, about the crushing weight of bills and fear and hopelessness. She thought about Lily's improving health, about the security she'd never had before, about the way Dante looked at her like she was something precious worth fighting for. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm willing to try. Something in Dante's expression cracked, revealing the man beneath the monster. He kissed her with desperate intensity, and Maya kissed him back, pouring forgiveness and acceptance into the contact. Whatever he had to do to keep them safe, she wouldn't judge him for it. She'd made her choice when she took his hand that first day in his office, and she wouldn't unmake it now. The call came 3 days later. Maya was at the restaurant handling the lunch rush when Dante appeared with an expression she'd never seen before. Something almost like peace. It's done, he said quietly, pulling her into the office. Victor won't be a problem anymore. Maya nodded, not asking for details she didn't want to know. Okay. His family won't retaliate. I made sure of that. Dante's hand found hers. You're safe now, Maya. Truly safe. You and Lily both. Relief flooded through her, so intense it left her dizzy. Thank you. There's more. Dante pulled out his phone, showing her a series of documents. I've been working on something, a foundation, to help families dealing with medical debt. Legitimate, fully legal, funded by my restaurants and other clean businesses. I want you to run it. Maya stared at the paperwork, at her name listed as director, at the funding that would help hundreds of families avoid the desperation she'd lived with for years. Dante, I don't know what to say. Say yes. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You understand what these families are going through. You can make a real difference, help people the way I helped you. And it gives us both something clean, something good to build together. Tears blurred her vision. This was what she hadn't known she needed. A way to take the salvation he'd given her and extend it to others, to transform her own suffering into something meaningful. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll do it. Dante pulled her into his arms, and for the first time since that night in the alley, Maya felt like they might actually have a future together. One built on more than just violence and protection, one where the good could outweigh the darkness. The foundation launched 2 months later. Maya split her time between Nero's and the nonprofit, finding purpose in helping families navigate medical bills and insurance nightmares. She worked with social workers and hospitals, with lawyers who volunteered their time, with donors who believed in the mission, and slowly, the weight of guilt she'd carried began to lift. Lily came home from the hospital on a bright October afternoon, her scans clear, her prognosis optimistic. Maya had moved them to a new apartment, still modest but safer, in a building with actual security, and filled it with furniture that wasn't secondhand and groceries that weren't determined by what was cheapest. This is amazing, Lily said, spinning in the living room. She looked healthy, vibrant, 17 again instead of 17 going on 40. Maya, you did all this? I had help. Maya glanced at Dante, who'd insisted on being there for the homecoming, who'd carried boxes and assembled furniture with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. Lily followed her gaze, her expression turning serious. Mr. Moretti, thank you for everything you've done for us. I know it's more than just the job. Dante inclined his head. Your sister earned every bit of it, Lily. She's exceptional at what she does. I'm sure she is. Lily's eyes were knowing, seeing more than Maya was comfortable with. But I think we both know this is about more than professional excellence. Maya's face heated. Lily. It's okay. Lily moved to stand beside her sister, her hand finding Maya's. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that I see what's happening, and I'm grateful for the job, for the Foundation, for keeping Maya safe. She looked at Dante. But if you hurt her, I will find a way to make you regret it. Dante's lips twitched with something almost like amusement. I believe you would. You're as fierce as your sister. We Torres women don't mess around. Lily squeezed Maya's hand. Now, I'm exhausted from all the excitement. I'm going to lie down for a bit. She disappeared into her bedroom, leaving Maya and Dante alone in the new apartment, surrounded by the physical evidence of how much had changed in just a few months. She's going to be okay, Dante said softly. The doctors are optimistic about her long-term prognosis. I know. Maya leaned into him, letting his arms come around her. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. It won't. His confidence was absolute. I've made sure she has the best care, the best insurance. Whatever she needs, whenever she needs it, it's handled. Maya tilted her head back to look at him. Why are you doing all this, really? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his hand moving to cup her face with that devastating gentleness she'd come to crave. Because when I look at you, I see a future I never thought I could have. One where I'm more than just violence and power plays, where I can build something that matters. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You make me want to be better, Maya. Not good, necessarily, but better than I was. You are good. She caught his hand, pressed a kiss to his scarred knuckles. Maybe not by conventional standards, but you have your own code, your own principles. You've helped so many people through the Foundation, through second chances you didn't have to give. Because you inspired it. Dante pulled her closer. Everything good in my life now traces back to that night I found you in the alley. You changed me, Maya. Made me remember why I built this empire in the first place. To protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Maya kissed him, soft and slow, pouring love and gratitude into the contact. When they pulled apart, she saw her own emotions reflected in his eyes. Hope mixed with fear. Love tempered by the knowledge of how fragile it all was. I love you, she said, the words feeling both terrifying and inevitable. I know it's complicated and messy and probably insane, but I love you. Dante's smile was transformative, making him look younger and somehow more dangerous all at once. I love you too. Have since that first night, probably. I just didn't have the words for it yet. They stood in the afternoon light, holding each other, and Maya let herself believe in possibilities she'd never dared imagine. A life with Dante, building the foundation together, helping Lily through college, maybe even something more permanent down the line. It wouldn't be conventional or easy, but it would be theirs. Over the next year, that future took shape. The foundation thrived, helping over 300 families navigate medical crises. Maya became a recognized voice in healthcare advocacy, speaking at conferences and working with legislators to reform medical billing practices. She stayed on at Nero's part-time, enjoying the balance between nonprofit work and restaurant management. Dante slowly transformed his business empire, divesting from the gray areas and investing in legitimate ventures. It was a gradual process, navigating politics and old alliances, but he was determined to build something clean for their future. He still had power, still commanded respect and fear in certain circles, but the violence became rarer, relegated to defense rather than offense. Lily finished high school and got accepted to Northwestern, planning to study medicine so she could help others the way she'd been helped. She and Dante developed a cautious friendship, built on mutual respect and their shared love for Maya. She never asked about his past, and he never volunteered the details, both understanding that some truths were better left unspoken. The apartment became too small, and Maya and Dante bought a house together in Lincoln Park, not as ostentatious as his other properties, but warm and lived in, a place that felt like home. They filled it with books and art, with Marco's cooking experiments and Sunday dinners with Lily and Angela, and the slowly expanding circle of people they trusted. One night, almost 18 months after that first encounter in the alley, Dante led Maya to the rooftop of their home. The city spread out below them, Chicago lit up like a constellation, beautiful and brutal, and theirs. I've been thinking, Dante said, his arms around her from behind as they looked out over the city, about everything we've built, about the future. Dangerous thing, thinking. Maya leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady against her spine. I want to make it official. He turned her to face him, and Maya's breath caught at the vulnerability in his expression. I want you to be my wife, my partner in everything. I want to build a life that's ours, not just mine that you're visiting." He pulled out a ring, simple and elegant, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the city lights and threw them back in brilliant flashes. Maya stared at the symbol of everything they'd become together, and felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I know I'm not the easiest man to love," Dante continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I know my past will always be part of who I am, that my world touches darkness you shouldn't have to navigate. But I swear to you, Maya, I will spend the rest of my life earning this. Earning you." "You don't have to earn me." Maya took his face in her hands, saw the man who'd saved her in more ways than one, who'd given her safety and purpose and love she'd never expected. "You already have me, Dante. You've had me since that first night when you chose mercy over cruelty, when you saw me as someone worth protecting." "Is that a yes?" His smile was tentative, hopeful. "Yes." She laughed through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you. I'll build this life with you. I'll take your darkness and your light and everything in between." Dante slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with an intensity that promised forever. The city lights sparkled around them, bearing witness to a love that shouldn't have worked but did anyway, built on trust and transformation and the stubborn belief that broken people could still create something beautiful together. The wedding was small, intimate, held in the garden of their home with only the people who mattered most. Lily stood as Maya's maid of honor, radiant and healthy and tearfully happy. James served as Dante's best man, his British reserve cracking into genuine emotion. Angela and Marco were there, along with a carefully curated group of friends and associates who understood that this union represented more than just love. It was a declaration of change, of choosing light over shadow. As Maya walked down the makeshift aisle, her hand in Lily's, she caught Dante's expression and saw everything she needed to know. He looked at her like she was a miracle, like she'd saved him just as much as he'd saved her. And maybe that was the truth of it. They'd been two people drowning in different seas, and they'd found in each other a reason to keep swimming. "I love you," Dante said when they stood facing each other before the officiant could even begin. "I love you for seeing past what I am to who I could be, for giving me a reason to be better." "I love you for giving me strength when I had none left," Maya replied, her voice steady despite her tears. "For showing me that being saved doesn't make me weak, that accepting help isn't surrender. You gave me back my life, Dante. Let me spend it with you." They spoke their vows, traditional words made profound by the journey that had brought them there. When the officiant pronounced them married, when Dante kissed her with fierce tenderness, Maya felt the final pieces of her old life fall away. She was no longer the terrified waitress from the South Side, drowning in debt and fear. She was Maya Moretti, director of a foundation that changed lives, wife to a dangerous man who'd learned to channel his violence into protection, sister to a survivor who'd beaten impossible odds. The reception flowed into evening, food and laughter and music filling the garden. Maya danced with Dante under string lights, then with Lily, then with James, who proved surprisingly graceful despite his formal demeanor. She watched her husband, the word still felt surreal, move through the crowd, saw how people gravitated to him, how he commanded respect without demanding it. "He's different with you," Angela said, appearing at Maya's elbow with champagne. "Softer around the edges, but somehow stronger at the core. You're good for him." "He's good for me too." Maya sipped her drink, watching Dante laugh at something Marco said. "We're good for each other." "That's all that matters." Angela clinked her glass against Maya's. "To new beginnings and second chances." "To new beginnings," Maya echoed. Later, after the guests had left and the caterers had cleaned up, Maya and Dante stood on their rooftop again, the same spot where he'd proposed. The city sprawled below, indifferent to their small happiness, but it felt less threatening now. It felt like home. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, his arms around her waist. "That a year and a half ago, I was working 3 jobs and drowning in debt and terrified every single day." Maya leaned into him. "And now I'm here, married to you, running a foundation that helps people, with my sister healthy and happy. It feels impossible." "The best things usually are." Dante pressed a kiss to her temple. "We made this, Maya, together. We took something that started in violence and fear and transformed it into something beautiful. Do you ever regret it?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. The changes you made, the parts of your empire you walked away from? Dante was quiet for a moment, considering. I regret the necessity of what I had to do to get here. I regret the blood on my hands, the lives I took, the fear I inspired. But I don't regret the choices that brought me to you. I'd walk through hell itself if it meant ending up here, with you, building this life. Maya turned in his arms, seeing the truth of it in his eyes. He wasn't a good man by conventional standards, would never be someone's idea of a hero, but he was hers, and he'd proven time and again that he was capable of change, of growth, of love that transformed rather than destroyed. I'm glad you found me that night, she said softly. I'm glad you chose to help instead of walking away. I couldn't walk away. Dante's hand cupped her face. From the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. Two survivors, two people who refused to quit despite the odds. I had to know what would happen if we fought together instead of alone. And now we know. Maya smiled. We win. They stood together under the stars, the city glittering around them. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build toward the light. The journey hadn't been easy, might never be completely safe or simple, but it was theirs, built on honesty and trust and the stubborn determination to be better than their circumstances demanded. In the distance, sirens wailed, a reminder that darkness still existed in the world. But here, on this rooftop with Dante's arms around her and their future stretching out in possibility, Maya felt nothing but peace. They'd survived the worst and come out stronger. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. And that, Maya thought as Dante kissed her under the stars, was more than enough. It was everything.